My experience comes from 14 years in the classroom, so I can stand up in front of a group of 5-year-olds all day, every day, but when I see adult faces, I start to get a little jittery. Yes, thank you, Warren. Like he was saying, I work for a foundation that's called the Breteau Foundation. What I would like to do today is I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we do, talk about what tools we use and where we work, and then hopefully I would like to be able to give you a little bit of perspective on what kinds of issues we faced and possible ways that those could be addressed in your apps. At the end, I'm really only going to talk for a few minutes because I know terrible teachers talk for the entire lesson, and I pride myself on not really being a terrible teacher. So at the end, I'd like to have a little bit of discussion amongst you all about what I've presented. So at the Breteau Foundation, we are right now expanding exponentially. We're in 30 schools. We've trained 170 teachers, and we've reached 7,500 students. So this project was piloted last year in my primary school in Johannesburg, South Africa, and since then we've gotten into 5 countries, which I think is pretty incredible. I'm the project manager in South Africa, so I'm working in 9 schools in South Africa, and then I'm training the other project managers in the other 4 countries. We're in Colombia, the UK, Laos, and Sri Lanka, and then South Africa as well. What we do, we are trying to map an app selection that we can use across all of the countries. So we have a team of people that sit and review apps, we have teachers look at them, and then we are trying to develop a curriculum for technology in classrooms. So we know that in the United States, every state has its own curriculum. It gets even more complicated when you're talking about a global curriculum. We're also trying to measure what we do. So we're coming up with systems of assessment so that we can track our students' growth. That's difficult to do because we're talking about 5 to 8 different languages right now, just in 30 schools. And we're at the very beginning stages of trying to digitalize that assessment. We have apps in 5 key learning areas. So you might see some of your icons up there. This is not completely up to date because we are trying out new things and adding new things when we update our tablets in the classrooms. I wanted to give a little bit of a snapshot of 1 or 2 schools. And the reason I wanted to do this is because I was a little bit torn. I wanted to give you a snapshot of a school, but then at the same time, I don't want you to think that all schools are like that. So I made snapshots of a few different schools, and I think that you can probably see, just based on looking at the pictures, that we can't generalize at all when we're talking about apps in classrooms, when we're talking about global education, because so many schools look different. So many schools have different teachers, different kids. This is one of our schools in Colombia. It's a huge school. It's 923 kids. This is my favorite school, and I know I'm not supposed to say that. It's like being a teacher and saying that you have a favorite child. This is my favorite school. I'll give you a little bit of details about this school. That lady over there in that picture is a kindergarten teacher. It's called Grade R in South Africa, and she's one lady, and she teaches 56 5-year-olds all day, from the beginning of the day until the end of the day. So that's a picture of her classroom. That's the first time that we brought iPads into her classroom, and that actually just gives me goosebumps looking at it because she's such an amazing teacher working with absolutely, I don't want to say no resources, very, very little resources. She has a couple of plastic tables in her classroom and a couple of handmade posters, and that's what she does. And those kids, they got the tablets, they had never seen it before, and they sat there and they were using an app on the tablet. It was like a drawing app, and she had just read them a story in Zulu, and then they sat and drew a picture that correlated with the story that she read. They had never touched it before, and they just started right away. It was pretty amazing. And then you can see here, this is Montessori math. This little girl's doing Montessori math, and this, again, was the first day that they had touched the tablets. I don't know what this means. super cute. Had to use that. We're also in Sri Lanka, and you can see that this school looks very different from the school pictures that I just showed you before. Plastic or wooden tables. It's very colorful, it's very beautiful, it's stimulating around them, but again, they had very little technology, or no technology in their classrooms. These are some of the teachers during the training workshops. So, I think it's important for us to discuss when we get to that point a little bit later, that every single education community differs. We can't go into a school in San Francisco and go into a school next door in San Francisco and think that they're the same. We have to look at what's different about the schools. We need to find out what the challenges are. I can speak for myself. Moving to South Africa 6 years ago, my number one problem in South Africa, and it's still that to this day, is internet connectivity. I read an article recently that said that in South Africa, 60% of the population has connectivity to internet at some time during the day. And that includes people with smartphones. So if you have that old Nokia that gets to the internet sometime, I'm not getting into the technical part of it because I have no idea what it is, you're included in that 60%. So imagine that school, Zilungisile, with the picture of the little girl in the brown. I don't even have cell phone reception when I'm at that school. It's about an hour and a half away from the town that I stay in when I go, and I drive on dirt roads to get there. So we've got to figure out a way to get technology into their hands immediately while we are working on fixing the internet connectivity issues. And then language barriers. I was joking around before with Valerie about how when she was presenting her bilingual app, I gasped because I don't think that there's a lot of apps that do that right now. And it's really important for my job, where we have 8 different languages in 30 schools. So that we can't say to Valerie, can you make this for us in this language? Can you make this for us in this language? But we do need to get to a place where we're able to at least try to touch on that problem. Also, there's no technology at home. So what we teach the kids, we hope that they'll grow up and they'll be able to present that or teach that to their families. We hope that when internet cafes get to the village, that the kids will be the ones to be able to help out. There's good news though. With all of those things that we face as challenges, there's really, really good news. Kids are kids all over the world. I taught in Chicago for a number of years before I moved to South Africa, and the exact same things that I was seeing in the south side of Chicago, I was seeing in a township in Cape Town. They are exactly the same. So if we understand where kids are coming from, we'll be able to understand how to make apps better for them. Tablets are an equalizer, even if they've never seen one before. I was doing a workshop about 2 months ago in that Durban school, and I became really emotional because it's important to change the mindset of the teacher. Sometimes there's evil teachers out there that think that, oh, these are the low kids or the slow kids, and they'll never get to where we need to be in the curriculum. And they even say things like, oh, well, these are my best students, and these are the ones that struggle, or these are the worst students. And being able to change that mindset in teachers is really important. Technology can do that. I would say the number one thing that I feel passionate about is that every single child in that classroom with 56 kids in the class is working at their own level. So they're not standing there listening to their teacher doing the exact same problem that their teacher is doing on the board. And the reason why I said I get emotional about it is because I was in a workshop and this lady said, she raised her hand and she said, you know, one of the things that's going really well is that even my low kids are learning. And which is great news. That's fantastic news to know that your low kids are learning. Great. What were they doing 6 months ago? And what were they doing for the last 5 years of their educational career? Were they not learning? Were they just sitting there struggling? Were they becoming introverts, or were they getting more and more shy because they knew they couldn't raise their hand because they didn't know the answer? So this is where we can really become advocates for the kids, and we can make that playing field level for them. This is where it gets a little crazy. these are my requests for you. This is where I feel like maybe I can offer you a little bit of perspective and hopefully change a couple of things. So the first one is make sure that your apps can run offline. It is really difficult for me. I could take a box of between, depending on the class size, 30 to 60 iPads or Nexus 7 tablets to a school that is completely off the grid. The apps have to be able to run without any connection whatsoever. So we do some beaming and we do some things like that, but I have to be able to do it without internet. For the updates, I literally have to take them, put them back in my car, drive them back to the city, get them connected to the Wi-Fi, do the updates individually on that many iPads or Nexus tablets, and bring them back to the school again a week later. So if at all possible, if the apps can run without internet, it would be fantastic for us. I think we've touched on this a little bit about limit the written or audio instructions. Most of the kids that we work with cannot read, and they cannot read in English or in their own language because we work with grade R, which is kindergarten to grade 3, so we're really in that primary phase. Those kids are, it's incredibly important for us to be able to get technology into their hands, but it doesn't do anything if they can't get to the instructions. If they can't get through the home screen, we can't do much with them. We can't let them be independent and work out the app themselves.
So the MUC, the minimum user competency, is essential, right? So really think about that because that'll help it travel.
The other thing that I've been seeing lately that I really like a lot is allowing the kid to be able to figure out on his own how to do it, and then if he doesn't do it right or doesn't do it right away, it gives them some guidance or a hint, but that it does it with a picture. So the reason I chose this one, this on Writing Wizard, is because it has the hand that shows the child what to do. If they get stuck and they don't know what to do, the hand goes up and shows them to click on the arrow to get to the next letter. We have no way of collecting data from the apps if they are not connected online. We have no formal way of doing it. So what I learned very quickly last year when I was teaching a grade 1 class in math, and I was doing a lot of Montessori math with my kids, I needed to be able to see quickly who was mastering the skill and who was not. So what I relied on was the score at the top of the screen. And I don't know if you can see this up here. But there's a score at the top of the screen. So I would even say to the kids, once you get to 20 points, then you can go on to the next level. And so that was a goal for them, and they would be able to do it. Simultaneously, I could walk around the classroom with a clipboard and their names on the clipboard and just kind of glance over their shoulders and write a little note for myself about which kids were scoring above 20, which kids were below 20, which kids I needed to work with in a small group later on that skill. The other thing that I want to point out for Montessori math that's really incredible is this little settings button at the top. So it's a small drop down at the top and it changes it so easily from difficulty levels. So it's 1 star, 2 star, 3 stars, and 4 stars. And I would talk very openly with my 6-year-olds about that. I would say, hey guys, this table over here, you guys are not quite there yet. I want you to work on 1 star. And, oh, you're ready for it, you can go up to 3 stars, like that. And so they knew where they were at, and it was that zone of proximal development that they could decide, okay, I think I'm ready. Is it okay if I go up to 2? And it's like a little reward for them also. Make the initial landing screen very simple with few words. I think that was one of the desks that you just showed. It was too much, and there was so much happening. The giant play button in the middle is enough. We want them to be able to go on. And I liked that when we read that piece before about the 4 things, enjoyment, investment, those. One of the quotes from that was that if they don't feel success in the first 8 to 10 seconds, they're not going to be as invested in it, and I think that's really important. I know that you have to do this because you're branding, and I understand that, but the opening credits at the beginning, the kids don't really care. I'm sorry to say that so bluntly, but they don't really care, and sometimes it just seems like it goes on forever and ever when you open the app. So if that's something that can be shortened or a way that we would be able to turn that off, that would be fantastic. Simple explanations about developing a global app. We love things that are discovery-based. We love things that won't let them go on until they get it correct. And the example that I used for this one is slice fractions. It's really cool how if they don't get it right, the mammoth can't walk. They have to go back up and they have to click the refresh and go back and try it again and again. That's teaching kids the soft skills. That's teaching them being able to learn how to analyze their mistakes, to fix their mistakes, to go back, and that's a life skill. The help section for teachers and parents. I use this example from Montessori Math because I like how in the app there is a lot of information that is teacher talk, and teachers love teacher talk. So make sure that in that it says what skills are being developed, and that's where you can connect them to the curriculum. I had the job this year of connecting our South African curriculum, the government curriculum that they've given to us to use, to the apps that we offer. And this was really beneficial to me to be able to make that curriculum map for the teachers, because it was clearly stated the child needs to have these prerequisite skills, the child will be working on these skills, and all the information was right there for me. It also needs to be pretty basic. So I'm saying that it needs to be detailed in giving us those skills, but it also needs to be basic so that it can be translated. Curriculum is one of those things that it's a reality. And we, as teachers, we have a certain thing that we need to teach, and we also have very, very little time for exploring on our own, and that the time that it takes to be able to do these things. So if you could do these for us, I think we would be much more inclined to use the app in the way that you intend. Some of the things that we're having a little bit of a hard time finding in apps is there are a lot of apps that deal with phonics in literacy. So spelling the words and hearing the sounds. We're having a little bit of a hard time finding apps that are about that grade 2 to grade 5 reading comprehension. So being able to, once they know the phonics and they can sound out the words, how are they able to then read and understand what they've read? The other thing that is very big right now in schools that I don't really see a lot of people touching on in the technology world is the characters and values content. Characters and values are something that we need to teach as teachers to kids because they're growing up and they're going to be adults in the community. They need to have those problem-solving skills, teamwork skills. They need those things, but how are we teaching it to them? So I think that there's definitely a space there, a blue ocean space there, for people to be able to do curriculum apps, but then on the side allow for those content, those characters and values to be able to be taught. And I think that it would be really great if that was in the parent-teacher section. These are the math skills that the app is helping with, and then these are the secondary skills that problem solving, critical thinking, and those types of things. I wanted to just leave it now and just kind of get some ideas from you all going. By all means, I'm not an expert in technology and creating apps. That's your job.
So I do a lot of work with culturally and linguistically diverse learners, and I was wondering how you were referring to the character and values education. I think sometimes some people, and I'm not saying that at all, but some people can interpret that as including like manners. And then there's also a lot of evidence, if you look at some of the mindfulness type curriculums coming out of, well, Richie Davidson and UW-Madison is doing a lot of things, that there's a lot of international and universal emotion things that are true to the human condition. And some of that is pro-social. Have you found when you're looking at the way some of that lessons is happening with the kids, are there difference in ways that certain tools, whether they're apps or curricula, whatever, are going against what the cultural what would be expected for being respectful and against the cultural norms, because you are in so many different places internationally?
It has taken me a long time to even be able to skim the surface of South African culture. So I am a white American from Richmond, Virginia, and here I am in a school of all black children and black teachers in Johannesburg, South Africa, for example. So I do think that there is a sensitivity that comes with that and a deep understanding that I don't have. I think it's important to be able to adjust things accordingly everywhere that you go. When I say character and values instruction, it's those things that teachers teach kids that maybe aren't necessarily their number one goal, but they should be their number one goal. So that's flipping the way that we see things. I shouldn't any longer be able to teach math as my number one goal. I need to teach life and use math to do it. And so it depends on where you are, but those social intelligence, students being able to be aware of themselves, those, and steer so much away from manners, because manners are the ones that are variable wherever you go. Problem solving isn't really variable wherever you go. It's a skill that every adult human needs to have to be able to function in society.
Hi there. I just wanted to say thank you very much for sharing your slide on tips for developing a global app. I mean, I would argue they don't need to be global, that people should be adhering to your suggestions anyway. I mean, they're really fantastic. In fact, a few things I hadn't considered. Oftentimes I think about what happens to an app when there's no Wi-Fi connected. But I hadn't thought about how could you create a visual on the screen for a teacher to easily walk around the classroom and see how well each child is doing without the connectedness. I thought that was a great tip. And I agree with the over-branding and a little spending too much time on the startup with the grandstanding of logos and such. And I'm remembering Shelley Day and Ron Gilbert of, what was their company? Humongous Games.
Humongous.
They used to have a really short opening, logo would flash on and go away. And only after, now granted, not all apps are games, but they had really long games for kids. It would go on for like 2 hours, and when you won, you got the credits. And it was pretty fantastic, I thought. Like, it was almost like the end of a movie, and you would stay and you'd watch all the little funny, cool, neat things that included within it, but it certainly doesn't need to be up front. But thank you for sharing.
There was one thing that I forgot to mention, and you just reminded me of it. When I walked around the classroom to check the students' scores, I also want to walk around the classroom and be able to see that they're all on the right page and they're doing the right thing. And so one of the amazing things that we have with the Nexus 7s is that we're able to put 8 profiles on each one. So the students are able to log into their profile, and it just doesn't exist on an iPad yet, but the students are able to log into a profile by their color. So when they get their tablet, everything on the tablet is blue for that child's profile. So let's say that I teach grade 2 and Miss Ewees class grade 2. My kids will always log in on red. When they log into the red profile, the home screen is red. So then I can just quickly glance around the room and see that every child is on the right profile. That way they don't mess up the other kid's score who's yellow and they're at level 5. This child is on level 1, they're all working at the place where they're supposed to be. So a little bit of background information. What we do at Breteau Foundation is we figure out how many is the biggest class of students, and then we provide that many tablets to the school, and the box of tablets goes around from classroom to classroom. So the kids get to use the tablets at least 2 times a week. We make a timetable with the school so that each child is not taking a tablet home with them. We didn't buy 923 tablets for that school in Columbia. We bought a box, and then it goes around to the classes. So it's really important those profiles can change from class to class.
Hi, you mentioned about how you visit a wide range of different schools and you can't really make any assumptions. Do you come across schools regularly where the children are already using mobile devices quite a lot? Perhaps they already have tablets at home?
Yes, definitely. So Last year, I worked at a school in Johannesburg, and my students were 5 and 6 years old, and that was where the Breteau Foundation came to the school and said, we want you to pilot this, and my kids knew more than I did. Really, honestly, they knew more than I did. And so I always tell the teachers in the workshops, if you ever don't know what to do, ask a kid. And it's because the kids don't have fear. They don't care about messing things up. As adults, we think, oh no, we're gonna touch this and it's gonna delete this, and then how do I get back to this? I'm never gonna be able to find it again. And kids, they just go and go. So at a very young age, my students last year were on their parents' phones, they were on their parents' tablets, and then they came to school and I was piloting this thing, and they would be doing all sorts of stuff. So it definitely happens. With it, though, there's a huge discrepancy. So from household to household, in the same school, in the same class, huge discrepancies.
Hi, one of the slides you showed us, I think it had a list of apps grouped into 5 subjects, or then it was categorized into something. Could you maybe show that slide again?
No problem.
And maybe explain a bit more how you kind of got those apps into this system, the class, and are those apps donated to you, or like how are the business going with the app developers?
Okay, so it depends on the app. We do try to make some deals here and there because it is a foundation, so we don't have a ton of money to be spending on things. They're either free apps or low cost to us. The 5 areas are numeracy and literacy. Those are what I call the content apps or the curriculum apps. Those are the ones that practice skills that you'll find in the country's curriculum. Then we have critical thinking apps, so those are the ones that really push that problem solving. Those are the ones like Monument Valley, and I don't know if you've ever played Overcolor, but it's really cool. And it's those kinds of apps.
Amazing.
Not a lot of instructions on the apps, and they're the ones that, it's those puzzles that get the kids thinking. This is actually not exactly true, because we've combined critical thinking and creativity now. We've combined creativity and toolbox now. Toolbox apps are tools that the teacher can use to teach content. So for example, book creator and pick collage and those kinds of tools that the teacher can use, but the teacher has to be creative about it. So if I'm using pick collage in the classroom, it's not something that I can just give to the students and say, here you go, here's pick collage, everybody play with it. It's not a game. I have to, as the teacher, teach kids what the assignment is, how they're going to use it. I have to make a lesson plan with what that looks like. So to give you a pick collage example, this side of the room, I want you to walk around the room and take pictures of everything that you see that are 2-dimensional shapes and make a collage for it. This side of the room over here, you're going to do 3-dimensional shapes. And then after you're done making your pick collage, then we're going to partner and you're going to tell your partner about your shapes and why they're 3-dimensional or why they're 2-dimensional. That takes creativity on the part of the teacher. So those are the lesson plan ideas that it would be fantastic if you were able to provide an app and then connecting lesson plans to go with it. And I think Harley mentioned this before when she was talking about curriculum. Teachers are grading papers at home. Teachers are making lesson plans on a Sunday night for the following week. As much information as you can give them as possible, and as much educational classroom practice advice that you could give them, the better. But in order to do that, you need to be hiring some teachers. I'm sure they'd be okay with it.
Right behind you. Give it to you, good hand.
Hi, could you tell me a little bit more about the literacy apps? And say in Colombia, is the instruction all in Spanish? And are you teaching Spanish literacy? What about South Africa? Where are you using English and so on?
Thank you. That's probably I would say for me, that's a huge challenge. South Africa has 13 official languages, and so every school that I go to is different. Some of the schools that I'm in, they've chosen to be English medium schools, and regardless of what language the child speaks at home, at the school is taught from grade R all the way up in English. It's not the case in all of our schools. So in Colombia, all of the instruction is happening in Spanish. In Sri Lanka, all the instruction is happening in Sinhala. And in South Africa, I'm a little bit of everything. My teachers all speak English. I'm able to do workshops with them in English, but the students are not. In the South African curriculum, it is not required for them to learn in English until grade 3. So from grade kindergarten to 2, all of the instruction is in home language. In the schools that I'm in, the instruction is all in Zulu. And so the problem is that the apps that we supply to them, there are no Zulu apps. And for a minute there, the teachers were a little bit upset that I wasn't giving them literacy apps that were in Zulu that they could learn how to teach Zulu. And this is where the toolbox apps really came in handy, because they could make a pic collage and they could type in it in Zulu. So they could make the pic collage of what I was just telling you about, the 2-dimensional shapes and the 3-dimensional shapes. And instead of the words being in English to caption what they were taking pictures of, they could type the words in Zulu, and the teacher was able to assess their math knowledge in Zulu and not their translation. The literacy apps that we're doing with them, it's a little bit of a struggle for these crosswords and the ones that say the words out loud, which is why I was so excited when Valerie stood up before and said that she had the one that's going where the instructions are in Spanish and the app is running in English, because you're taking a Spanish-speaking child and allowing them to hear what the phonics sound like in English. We're assuming at that point that they've already mastered the Spanish phonics, and now we're teaching them second language acquisition.
We're going to do one more question. Okay.
I'm wondering if you know anybody, like at a university, that would do what our apps would need if you wanted them for use. Like, somebody might not be able to make the app, but they might be able to take the code and take out the extra things, put in the Zulu. It seems like that's a piece that would be useful. We can't afford to do it for the number of countries that have asked us. Like 8 different countries applying in their languages, and we haven't even done Spanish yet in the US.
Yes.
So we're not making a lot of money. We're losing a lot of money. So it's just hard to afford to do it, and I would love to do it.
Is Valerie still here? I can't see that lights in my eyes. Valerie, do you mind answering that question, what we were just talking about before? I'm pretty sure you're going to say it better than me.
You asked the question again.
Sure. Do you know anyone that could, like at a university, take our code with our free and put in the Zulu, take out whatever isn't appropriate, so that it is useful? But we can't afford to do it in a bunch of languages. It seems like nobody would do that. Like I used to.
Probably some people would want to do it.
That. At the Learning Company, I would give open code to a university, and they would adapt it for kids with special needs.
Right.
And there just was many money traded, but we can't afford to do it, but we would like to provide it if it's useful.
I don't know anybody in particular.
In the U.S. Okay.
But it's definitely one of the big difficulties. And I was telling Mona that we localize in 15 languages,
Yeah.
and we get 3 people to check, and we still get mistakes in the apps.
Yeah.
So we
it's
still get
expensive,
reviews
isn't it?
saying this is wrong. But you know what more can I do than have 3 different people test it in their native language?
Yeah.
And doesn't it cost you a lot to do that?
Very expensive.
Yeah.
We're going to do one more.
So I appreciate it.
One more.
One more.
For real.
Mona, thank you very much for that. One question, because I'm just curious. As a percentage of your total budget, how would you guess your spend is hardware versus software?
I'm the absolute wrong person to ask about this.
I'm just curious, for every $500 iPad, how much are you spending on software?
Let's see, we're talking 40 to 50 apps per tablet. Our Nexus tablets have different apps on them than the iPads, obviously, because they're not, we try to get things that go on both to make our trainings easier. I would say 10% for 10 to 20% for software. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that becomes the challenge, right? For everyone in the room. $500 piece of hardware, $100 to split between everyone else in the room for the software that goes on. I'm not knocking you, I'm just saying all the schools in the world are doing that.
Well, so this is the other thing, I'm sorry, can I just say one more thing? I don't want to go over time. This is the other thing that I think is really important, is that the people that are making decisions about budgets in schools are very trusted. So usually what happens is it's the technology person that's making the decision, and they have a small amount of budget, and it's their one opinion that goes to tell the principal, I want this, this, and this. And the principal says yes or no. Yes, I trust you, it's fine, you can figure that out, or no, I don't. So once you've got the hardware in the schools, it comes down to, it's like what you were saying before about word of mouth. It has to get, the word of mouth has to get to the right person in the school. And it's not gonna come by sending an email with a free trial for 7 days. Because that, I mean, as a teacher, I don't have time in those 7 days to decide if it's something that I'm gonna go mission for. Because I do have to mission for it. I have to go to my principal, I have to get approval. He's gonna tell me he doesn't have enough money for it this time. If he does have money for it, it'll be next year. I have to remember that that's the app that I want on all of them. So I think it's really important to get out into a couple of high-functioning schools. Maybe in America, in the charter school movement, because there's big charter school things happening with technology now. Get out into a couple of big networks, and then from there, get the word of mouth out to the rest.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right.